cool. Hey, gang. We'll pretend that it's Friday, and this is Up the Middle. With us, as always, Matt Deemer and Blake Fisher. I'm Yergz. Today is actually Thursday, if you're listening to the recording, or if you got us right now. You didn't miss anything yesterday. It's really just Thursday. As you probably know, my grandmother passed away, and tonight I'm flying to Pennsylvania to attend her services tomorrow. We've set up with, which one is that? WWPR, to play this recording that we're doing right now tomorrow at the 12 o'clock spot where we would normally be live. And then last week's show is still going to be at 11 on WDJY in Atlanta. That may be coming, by the way, to fruition because we have this new system. Blake, are you frozen?
No, I'm just sitting here.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. You have like this slobber coming out of your mouth.
What I'm wondering is, like, should we, since we're delayed, like, since this is going to air tomorrow on Friday and we're recording it Thursday, should we like try to guess what kind of crazy thing will happen between and just speculate about it anyway?
Oh, yeah. I was wondering, do you guys think we'll have a verdict in time for tomorrow's show?
I think that's an interesting thing. It's like, I probably not, because I think it's a complicated enough thing. But I did read an interesting thing from a lawyer that says juries sure do like not deliberating over weekends. We get a lot of verdicts on Fridays because people don't want to wait through the weekend. It's like when they're missing work, it's one thing, but if they're missing their weekend, it's quite another. I don't think in a case as important as this, and I think that I see no evidence that the jury is not taking this seriously. I doubt they're just going to rush to it.
Oh, they weren't in deliberation an hour before they came back with a question.
Yeah, so that's what I would expect to happen, and I think the jury instructions are kind of confusing here. It would be worth talking about, but we could be wrong, and it could be out by the time we talk about it.
Yeah, we may have an emergency episode over the weekend or early next week.
But I would not bet that there's going to be a verdict tomorrow. I mean, they've only had it since Tuesday?
Wednesday?
Because they take Wednesday, they're not even there Wednesday.
Yeah, this is the second day.
Yeah, so it seems
Monday was closing arguments, right?
Well, Monday was the holiday.
No, Tuesday.
So Tuesday was
okay. Oh yeah. So
do we want to take bets of what the verdict is going to be?
So I heard something interesting that I don't agree with, and of course it was on CNN, and I also saw MSNBC already has him in the electric chair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they think that is the actual punishment that's going to be handed down. They're going to be disappointed when he's not in Rikers Island immediately afterwards. I don't think they know how it works.
Fox and people like Benny Johnson and Ben Shapiro and all the conservative talking heads already have him elected president.
Well, so unfortunately, I don't think a criminal conviction here will prevent him from being such.
There's those extremes. We are probably, I got to talk to you guys probably off air about the next couple of things, or this next, but I do have some potential guests lined up that are assorted industry experts. Matt had said, let's build a following first. But these are actually pretty big names for their space. So I'm thinking let's actually move forward with it and have them help us build the following.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
But one of the guys is like, he agrees with us in that the one who stays out of the media the most will probably win.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But then also he's like, and I mentioned the name, he said what happened, and we both knew what we were talking about. He's like, every negative that comes out of Donald Trump skyrockets him in popularity and whatever else. Now there's a poll out that says, if you remember back at like the New Hampshire primaries, that period, not just the New Hampshire primaries, but the whole January, exit polls were saying that if he was convicted, they would absolutely, not be supportive.
Yeah, and that's been further actually played out in some polling in some of the swing states. I read one from Wisconsin this week that had him basically, I think he was +6 if, in normal thing. They basically what they did to I was like, "How did they do this polling?" Because 'Cause I'm always curious, and what they did is they took the sample group and then split them in half, and half of them they asked, "Who would you vote for, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?" And the other half, they asked, "Who would you vote for, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, if Trump is,
Victor.
convicted of a crime?" And it basically swung from if there's just the normal question, Trump versus Biden, I think he was +6, and then Biden's +4, so it's a 10-point swing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
So
I
that's
do
my
think
point.
that can potentially
Right
make a difference.
there is a point I've been trying to make to you forever.
But
I heard just the opposite.
here's another interesting.
I heard that those numbers are no longer big like they were back in January.
Well, they're still pretty big, but they like they said, there is a flip on the conviction thing. However, there's another interesting thing on this because I think this does get interesting to play out, and we just won't know. But I mean, it's interesting to think about. If he's convicted, he will be obviously filing appeals. There's going to be a sentencing thing. This is going to drag on for a long time. Like I said, he's not going to get taken in handcuffs in an orange jumpsuit to Rikers Island. It's just that's not how this is going to work.
Right.
I read another interesting opinion that says if you like Republicans, the Republican like party and Trump's campaign even potentially would benefit from a guilty plea because it would keep him obsessed about this one thing instead of actually talking like doing the other crazy talk that he normally would.
Other stuff, yeah.
Which kind of goes to your point, Yergz, is that whoever we like, we've said, I think whoever can keep a low profile
I think you were the first one to say
and
that.
isn't in the news all the time. I don't think most people are paying enough attention to this, which is fine because it's nuanced, it's weird, like the details of the
We're not even. Matt said, "Why are we making this a big story?"
right.
There's
And
too much other, and he's right. There's
so I think
we
that
got to follow it because of what
no,
and
we
who
do.
it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, Matt's not even. He's like, do 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 do.
Well, but
Pretty
like no, like
close.
Jon Stewart said on Daily Show, is like they're following him going to the courthouse every day, like it's exciting. It's not. Like there's like
Yeah.
they don't need to cover it, but it's getting them eyeballs. And I think the thing is, I don't think that you're right. This does not hurt him right now as much because he's not necessarily out on the campaign trail talking about the stolen election and January 6th hostages. Not that he's not doing that some, but he's doing it less than he normally would be. Otherwise, if he gets a not guilty verdict, that's it. They can't retry him. There's no like he's
Right.
gonna immediately go on the
Yeah.
campaign trail and start talking crazy, and it will become the news. And I think he can't help himself, even though like and the debates are another great example of something that I think that potentially, I'm still hedging on if it's smart or not by Biden, but I think it's what Biden had to do was to agree to these debates, especially in June, because I think he's got to do something
Yeah.
to change the poll numbers.
I think he wants to do something.
Yeah, but I mean, again, what what's going to come right after this? If there's a not guilty verdict, next month we're talking about Hunter Biden's trial, and don't pretend for a second that's not going to consume some of the airwaves like the Trump trial has. And
Right. Oh, yeah.
Biden's going to be suffering from the same thing that Trump is right now. It's like, and will people care or not? I don't know. I think that most people that only care about this are hyper partisan on the opposite side of the person because
Right.
most Trump people are not paying attention to it other than showing up in their red tie clown suits to pretend that they're I don't know what did we call what did that tweet say reservoir lapdogs. That's a pretty good
Yeah.
insult for
Yeah.
what they were. So it is interesting. My bet right now would be that he's found guilty on some count because I just think it's a weird
Well,
enough.
here's my whole thing about guilty or not. He has to be guilty already.
I see. I don't agree with that.
Well, no, procedurally, he has to be guilty already because what Cohen was found guilty of, or one of the things Cohen was found guilty of, was criminal conspiracy.
But that's not how this works. And that's not how the criminal justice
Cohen can't be found. You have to have two people. That is the definition. The definition of criminal conspiracy.
right. But you don't have
So
to.
if Trump's
Both
not
people don't have
found
to be
guilty,
convicted of it. You have to have separate different incidents for both, and that's what part of the problem with this New York law specifically that people are up in arms about, which I think is reasonable. There was a tweet going around, and sort of people were up in arms last night about, or 2 nights ago, if you're listening to this on Friday, about the judge's jury instructions were that you don't have to all agree on the same crime. And what he was talking about, MAGA World took this as it doesn't have to be a unanimous verdict. What they're specifically saying is that, you know, the DA is saying, Bragg is saying, these are misdemeanors that are elevated to felonies because they were in concert with another crime. What he's saying is that the jury does not have to agree on what the other crime is because New York law doesn't state that they have to say what the other crime is. Now, I think that's bad law. I think that if you're going to say you're going to upgrade something to a felony, I think if you say that's in concert with another crime, you're going to have to prove the other crime too. I don't think it's fair to put someone on trial for something like without putting them on trial for something that doesn't, you can't. So I think that's bad law, but that is the New York law. It should be changed. It's a bad law, but the judge is having to deal with badly written law here. And that's why I think that we should pay more attention to how we write these laws, because people will find loopholes. And this is kind of a loophole, but like by the letter of the law, he's right. The jury does not have to agree on what the other crime is. They can think it was election interference. They can think it was federal campaign finance laws. But they, you know, that's all he was saying. But, you know, MAGA, of course, took it as you don't have to have a unanimous verdict. That's not what they're saying. Everyone has to say he's guilty to get to the point where they would say, well, some of us think he's guilty of this other crime. Some of us think it's this other crime, but that's not really the crime he's on trial for. It's really stupid. And that's the reason I don't like this trial, is because it hinges on too much weird loophole minutia in the law, and basic people can't understand it. I think you have to be a lawyer to understand this stuff. And I just don't think we should go after a former president, even one that I think is, you all know my opinions on Donald Trump, but I think this was a bad first step, because you're right. It's been kryptonite for him, or not kryptonite. Like it's like the opposite.
The good kryptonite, the one that helps him.
Yeah, it just helps him. So it's like one the red kryptonite or something like that in Superman. I should know this thing.
I think the blue one is whatever.
Well, we just call it the sun. You know, he gets his power from the sun, right?
Right. But there is one that like gives him even more power.
I think it's something like red kryptonite. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think it's right.
I don't. What do you think?
Again, I don't care. I don't care about this. This is so gossipy bullshit that I just can't stand talking about this stupid trial. The only thing I will say about this trial is I hope that the Democrats, if he is found innocent, do not just tie on to another trial or another crime or conviction or something like that to try to.
He tries for a quarter kind of thing.
Exactly. I hope they just drop it and they actually focus on substantive issues, you know, inflation, economy, jobs, labor, stuff like that, so they can just, win the presidency via issues and appealing to, people, instead of trying to, get Trump convicted and say that guy's bad. I think that's just really. I think that the whole thing is just, of course, it's not good for America in general, yada, yada, yada. Right. It's just not good for the Democrats. I think that it's really not giving Democrats something to run on. And we're not just talking about the president. We're talking about
did absolutely nothing for 2 years.
Yeah, we're talking. So you're looking at people running for Congress. I kind of know something about that.
Right.
People running for Senate. You have all these people running, and then you don't even have the president actually running on something. I don't know what he's running on. We had like an inkling of what his priorities were at the State of the Union, but after that, it's like he's just kind of not there, and we're all hinging it on if this guy's convicted, and so we got to get something of substance here. And if this doesn't happen, then I'll be extremely frustrated.
Don't you think, Matt, though, that's partially because Biden running on the issue is a losing proposition for him specifically? I don't think necessarily for Democrats down ballot, but I don't think he's concerned about Democrats down ballot right now. I think he's concerned about himself. And I think he realizes if Trump is in the news, and like both Trump and Biden are trying to do this, they're trying to say this is a referendum on the other guy. Because like I said, we have two guys that happen to have already been president before. And I feel like it's the strategy. Biden's tried to like stay out of the legal stuff. And I think he did a pretty good job earlier, but he's wading into it more and more. Like the official, Biden Twitter account is talking about like we talked about last week, I hear you're free on Wednesdays thing. It's like, why even jump into the fray of that? Like, what makes you think that doesn't make it appear that Donald Trump is telling the truth when he says that your Justice Department is going after him? Because most people don't even understand that, like, the Justice Department has nothing to do with this case. It's a New York State case. It's not the Justice Department.
So one of the guys that I want to have on as a guest, the criminal justice reform guy thinks this is all being done by the Biden administration.
I mean, I think the Biden administration could have stopped it if they wanted to. I think they could have, I think you could invite Alvin Bragg to the White House or call him or whatever and say, hey, look, I want you to understand what this is going to look like. And I think this is, like I said, I think it's a weak case. I think the other ones are much stronger. I think the 2 Justice Department ones are actually the best ones. I think the Georgia one's going to fall apart too because of all the Fonnie Willett stuff. But
this is because I agree. I think that's one of the stronger.
But the federal ones to me are more strong. And to me, you just come in and go look, we don't want anything appearing to be weaponization of the Justice Department because the office should be above that. And, he could have done that potentially, but I mean, I get that he wants to stay out of it, but he's kind of dipping his toes in it a little bit. And, I think that that's a bad strategy. I think both of them are just trying to say, look how bad and dangerous the other person is, which I think is actually fair. I think they're both bad and dangerous potentially. That's my opinion, but
I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, that's okay.
I mean, I really don't think it's fair. I think that it's cheating the Americans or the American populace out of a conversation and bringing up issues. I think that it is, again, being wishy-washy, as we spoke about last time on topics, like taking a stand. You don't know how frustrated I am on people that run for office right now, and it's because they don't take stands on anything, even when it's right or wrong. Even new people, they are so scared to say what they believe in, what they should be doing, what we should be doing in the direction or the direction of the country or their cities, their state, their municipalities, or their counties, that we don't have these conversations. And so, yeah, I'm extremely disappointed with it. And I think that it is a big issue.
But don't you think that's because from the top down, they're basically told you've got to get in line or get out? I mean, that's
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And I think that we just got to start calling out this bullshit. To be honest with you, this is complete BS. That we know that there's caucuses, we know that there's money, we know that there's people don't want to because they don't want to piss certain people off, and it is destroying anything that we're going to get done. I have something right now that's happening in Cuyahoga County. So you guys want a backstory because I think this is interesting.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, quick backstory. So the county executive, he is a Democrat and he won election. One of his campaign promises was, we need a new jail, but I'm not going to raise the taxes on you or extend the taxes on you unless we put it to a vote. Midnight session, they pass it without taking it to the vote. 0.25% taxes, for the next 35 years. That will pay for the jail. First of all, that's BS, obviously. Nobody's going to call him out on it, right? Now there's a county councilman who is trying to make sure that tax exclusively and only goes to the jail instead of putting it to the general fund so they can just spend it as they wish. Yeah. Which, of course, I believe it should go to the jail. You said it's going to go to the jail. It's going to go to the jail. Pay for it using the jail.
Right.
And nobody's really taking a stand on it. There's a couple people that are like, hey, I back this because we think it's a good idea. But there's this whole concerted effort, and now the Democrats, it seems like, are being very silent on something that seems very simple. You extended the taxes without the vote. Now at least do us the favor of putting it to, and it's really disappointing.
It's
disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, but to me that it falls. I mean, this we could probably tell 1,000 stories like that right now, not only 100%. On local levels, but on the national level of basically there's this rule that says you can't ever criticize someone with the letter that matches yours after their name. Right. And I just think that's a terrible way to do politics, because what you're going to end up with is you end up with the far right and the far left kind of controlling things, because they're the only people that will be outspoken, and primary people, or those are the only people that are doing that is the furthest fringes of both parties, and everyone's falling in line because they're the loud ones, but everyone else is just being the good partisan. And I don't want to mean that in a negative way, because I mean there
mean that in a negative way, because you're 100% right. It should be considered a negative at this point, because the conversations are not being had about what we need to do to solve certain issues.
Yeah.
And so if we're being the good partisan in a positive way, what is that? That we just push through, whatever BS and not, have that conversation. Look, us three on this show every week, we argue about all kinds of stuff. Sometimes we get heated. Sometimes, but you know what we do is we walk away. We text each other almost right after it. We have conversations throughout the week, and we come back
How
to have
fun
the
that
show.
was.
And there's nothing that I do not hate or disrespect either of you.
Yeah.
But you want to know what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the conversations and talk about the topics. But if you can't do that and where they're actually making the legislation and spending our taxpayer money, then we have an issue. So yes, it is a negative, Blake.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
well, but
Yeah.
I only
Yeah.
mean that, like, previously in the past there were broad coalitions in both of the parties, and so it was like, I think it was more okay to be like, I'm going to support my party, but like I feel like it came along with sometimes, like, even though I disagree with them about X, Y, and Z, like you saw that all the time in like the 90s. I mean, and I'm not trying to like say the 90s were some perfect political environment. I'm just saying that like Bill Clinton did it. And I think that's why he was an effective president, is because he saw that, like, okay, if I'm going to get reelected, I have to do some of these things that people want, even if that means I'm working with Republicans and stuff. And he got some flack for it. And that's fine if he gets flack for it from people that disagreed with his position on that from his side. I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with him getting crap from, like, that's what this should all be about. Like, they should be discussing, they should be arguing. I want to see these, it'd be nice if we got to have these debates with the people that are actually in power. Like, that's what I want to see, actual debate stuff. And I want to see it between the parties too, because you just atrophy. Like, that's the problem, is I feel like both sides at this point have just atrophied, where they haven't even flexed that muscle to be able to do it.
I don't think they have that muscle. They haven't worked that muscle for so long. They don't have that muscle anymore. But call me just one of those guys that just likes to see things like get a little dysfunctional sometimes. I actually like the whole McCarthy speaker thing, where they had to deliberate and actually debate it, and there was that whole conversation about it. I thought that was healthy to watch C-SPAN and actually saw them just like there voting, doing the thing, watching people jockeying for power, going around. You saw McCarthy talk to Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and some Democrats coming over. That was healthy, and that's something that we don't see a lot about. Is everybody in the chamber, actually at their seats, working out some legislation and actually making votes and watching that conversation and dialogue go. I thought that was healthy.
Yeah, the only problem is that was just about a position in Congress and not about an issue. I'd love to see them do that about the border. I'd love to see them do that about, an actual thing that's really negatively affecting. You watch like something like the Lincoln movie, the Spielberg movie, where obviously like heavy debate trying to get the 13th Amendment passed and stuff. And that, like,
which I'm going to rewatch again this weekend. That's a good call.
You know what I mean? Like,
that was his last movie too.
No, he's done.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis. No, he did one since then. He did the Thread one. I can't remember what it was called. Phantom Thread. But anyway, like, but like, I long for that. I mean, that just makes me go, man, like, to have that. And I do think some of the problem is the C-SPAN part. I think that we need politicians to be able to, like, do stuff behind closed doors and make deals, because they cannot do it in front of cameras now because of the incentives of primaries and stuff. I don't know how
just a misinterpretation by, I think, the normies, to be honest with you. They saw that and they're like, oh, that's dysfunction. I saw debate. Yeah, I saw that's what function looks like.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And not to mention, everyone's scared to say anything on camera that's not in lockstep with the base or the party. I mean, right now, Matt, at least you guys have some things on the that are like, hey, these are our policy preferences. The Republican Party has no policy. It's just loyalty to Donald Trump. That's it. There is no Republican platform at all right now. And so, the only lockstep there is
like that for about a decade.
Yeah, but I mean,
and that's what I wanted to jump in earlier with Matt about, the lack of people taking a stance. The biggest conversations you're having in the House right now are Republican members on the floor bitching at Republican members for not having done anything for the past 2 years. One guy flat out asked, or one guy from Texas flat out asked, what am I supposed to campaign on?
Right. And it's really because there's a handful of people holding both sides hostage right now. It really is not, I mean, it's a small percentage. It's not even 10%. It's
right. And I think the thing now is with the left and, however far left you want to call it, or overall the Democrats, because they don't have the control of the House.
Yeah.
You don't see what they're doing to slow things down.
Right, but they did the same thing when Pelosi was speaker. She had a very
Yeah.
bare majority, and they were doing the same thing. Now, it wasn't. I will give them the credit to say that it's not as outrageous as the Marjorie Taylor Greene crowd is doing to the Republican side, because they're doing it out of spite. I mean, it doesn't even seem to be for any specific policy preference. I'd be fine with some people having principled, like, this is my position on this, and I'm not going to budge on it. And especially when they know they have the negotiating power, like, okay, that's fine. But
But don't you think that's what the right is doing? The
well,
far right is doing?
no, because I don't think they actually have principled, I don't think they have any principled ideals behind that. I think it's literally just about whatever Donald Trump tells them to do. So it's not
Okay.
like, we've seen these protest votes. I mean, Rand Paul would be a good example, except that he's gone all in on the Trump stuff. But I mean, like, he's had several things where he was like, principled, whatever, whether it was privacy or NSA kind of stuff. Like, he's had things like that where he was like, I'm going to be the guy that fights about this. And even when the rest of his party wasn't. And I think that's good to have some people that speak out about the thing that they have convictions about. And I just don't think we're seeing that in bulk, where people are like, well, here, we're 8 people that feel this way. We can really kind of get something out of it. Because, like I said, there's no mechanism for them to do so other than Marjorie Taylor Greene's just trying to fundraise. That's really what anytime someone like her or Matt Gaetz,
I
that's
think she's trying to stay alive.
I think she's trying. I think it's fundraising. I think you even look at the last week thing that we kind of briefly talked about with. I know it's not an issue, so to speak, but because they don't have issues to talk about, they have to make up lies about, like, the FBI wanting to assassinate Donald Trump at the Mar-a-Lago raid. And that wasn't just a right-wing media problem. That was Josh Hawley and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ted Cruz, who I know is smart enough to know that that's a standard boilerplate thing in every search warrant, kind of, not the warrant, but in the, what is it called, Yergz? Like
The operations plan.
operations thing. Yeah, I mean, you can literally pull it up on the Department of Justice, and this stuff's spelled out in black and white ink, and it was in Biden's warrant too. But they know they're lying about it because they don't have anything else to talk about, and it's fundraising. It's so I can't. I don't understand how people. I guess I get how people fall for it, because I can understand that if you were less engaged and you think that your senator or someone at the top of congressional leadership or the president, the ex-president himself, Donald Trump, is like saying this stuff, you would want to believe that it's true. And it's just not. But I mean, that's what we're getting to is those kind of things. And the left is doing it too with all sorts of stuff. And the typical things. It's like, if we could just get rid of those maybe 20 people in Congress, I think that it would go a long way. I still think it's not like it would solve the problem, but it would certainly, I think everyone, even if they can't say it out loud within those parties, are sick of those people running the show. Like, they're not even in leadership, and they're essentially running the show. I mean, Nancy Pelosi I think, did a better job at pushing back on it, because she actually at some point came out, and what did she say about him? She said, I can't remember. She kind of dissed
Talking
him
about
as, like, not being
the
important.
suits or whatever they're called.
Yeah. The
AOC
squad, she kinda
uniforms.
the
Yeah.
squad, she kinda went after them, like, with kind of a snide remark, and I thought it was the right thing to do, because I think that's what leadership is supposed to do, is not cater to just, like, 6 people in your, because they don't represent her whole constituency. And I think Nancy Pelosi is a smart politician. I think Mike Johnson's trying to do a little bit of that. I think he's surprised me. Going into this, I would have thought there's no chance he survives. He's done better than I thought he would, but we still need someone to actually come out and say, these people are performative ass clowns. Let's go back to Office Space and bring that one back. But but no one's going to do that when the repercussion is you basically sayonara. You don't have a political career anymore, and that's what it is right now on the right, for sure. I think there's degrees of that on the left. I think there's people aren't saying the negative things about Biden that they want to in public, because I think it's almost June. I think it's time, like, Democrats, I think, are scared of these polls now. I think that they're going, this is serious. Right now, it does look like Biden's actually losing, but they're unwilling to say it out loud. They're unwilling to criticize Biden because they're worried people will attack them for, like, oh, how dare you say something negative about our side? But I think that we need people on both sides to call out their own side, because it doesn't work when we just cross.
Well, I think it's that, but I also think it's not just that. I mean, at this point, if we don't have another candidate in the Democratic Party, you just have Biden. So why throw shade on something that you have to deal with? I mean,
Well, I mean, because you should at least convince him to, even if it's
to do what
private
at this
back
point?
channels. I mean,
What?
I would drastically change my strat. If I had Biden's ear, I would tell him to change his strategy. I would tell
Oh,
him,
he has to change his strategy. I mean, that's a lot of
And I think he
frustration.
can do it
Like I said,
quietly too. I think he can do it quietly too, because of the fact that he has not been campaigning heavily a lot until more recently. It's not like he's, like you said earlier, he has no platform.
well, Axios reported as much. I mean, Axios said that the reason he agreed to the debates was because someone got in his ear and said, like, hey, you are wrong about the polls being wrong, and you need to pay attention. You are actually in danger, and you need to do something to change this trajectory. And so I think that's why we got the debates. I'm happy about it. I don't think presidential debates are like the end all be all like thing that we make them to be, but like I do want to see these guys have to have a real conversation about the issues, mostly because I think it's going to expose the fact that both of them are like woefully underperforming candidates when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I want the American people to see that. I'm excited about there not being an audience at the June one. That's been my least favorite thing about debates.
I think that's should be mandatory across the board.
So I think he is listening to some of that, but I think he's still listening way too much to the way online left, just like Trump is paying attention too much to the way online right. And I don't think that's where 75% of the country really is. Like most of the people that are going to vote in November are not those things. Those are not their issues. You look at the polling on even like, I think if Biden really just shut up about Gaza and just like, I think if he just said, look, here's the situation. We're going to support Israel and that's it. If he did that, I think he would potentially win because I think he's starting to lose votes from Jewish people and stuff that are worried about, choosing between never Trump or never again.
Yeah, but I see a lot of Jewish people that are pissed at Israel.
That's fine.
They're
That's
not
fair.
happy with some of the actions that Israel's done.
That's fair.
Look,
but like,
just take a side. The guy hasn't taken a stance. That's the problem.
Yeah,
pick a side.
He's pissing everyone off by trying to straddle the line.
And that's the thing. He's not even just pissing off the voters. Voters don't know where he stands. I mean, the hypocrisy. Look, the hypocrisy of America sending aid to Palestine, building what is it, a boat dock so they can get aid in there. That's been for the second time now, which is costing billions.
It got destroyed by the waves.
And then at the same time, sending weapons to Israel is absolutely insane. It is absolutely insane.
And I don't so much mind trying to do both. Like as far as like I'm fine with aid. I'm fine with aid.
I do. It's because here's the thing. What I'm trying to say, I'm trying to illustrate that this is a policy. And the policy means he's not picking a side. That is the most wishy-washy BS I've ever seen. And look, I understand if there's something happening that you send aid to. I get it. Send aid, but do not fund both sides of the same thing, and then make us think that we're humanitarians or something. And also, like, just come the hell on. We already know where this money is going.
It was a really bad plan.
That was the bad guy from the one Sherlock Holmes movie. He was making weapons and making Band-Aids.
Yeah. Or the other classic example is Elvis's manager, who made not only Elvis gear but I Hate Elvis merch that he also sold to the people that hated Elvis. It's like nice. And it's not that he's like, I think he's just trying to like be everything to everyone. And like I think Biden should look at the polls, issue polls. Now issue polls are sketchy. Like look at good ones. They are sketchy. They're not always great, but you look at the majority, like look at where there are 60-70% issues. And for the most part, support of Israel is like a 68% issue kind of thing or whatever like that of the country. Is like most people say that like, yeah, they should be able to go in and take out Hamas.
Sure.
And go with that. Be like, look, I think there's more people that feel this way than feel the other way. And like pick, I mean, even do it on political expediency, even if it's not based on your like whatever moral conviction, like pick something. Because
this is what happens when there's poor leadership. I mean, look, and again, I'm coming from this as somebody who's trying to navigate a political campaign, right? If you have poor leadership, you're out there trying to figure out what you're supposed to do yourself, right? And so you are figuring that out. And what you then are doing is having all your, let's just call them lieutenants, sergeants across your infantry, figure out what they're trying to do, and everybody's going different directions. And so if you don't have the top saying like this is our stance, and then seeing that there are people within your collective, your company, that are actually going to buck what you're saying and going different directions, you have people going all over the place. And so that's what you're having right now. Is you're having the Democratic Party or people who are considering themselves Democrats at this point, be wherever the side they're on, going in these different directions and not knowing where they are. And so we do have this infighting. I do see the same thing that's happening in the Republican Party for
Oh, yeah.
different things because of lack of leadership. And honestly, it's just not good. It
Yeah.
is just not good. And so we're just again, take a stance on some of these issues. It's not clear. It is really not clear. And honestly, he should address. Can we just talk about inflation really quick too?
Oh my God.
And like how much like it's another thing that I think when he became president, it was something that was just ignored, right?
Yep.
It's high, it'll come down. It's come down.
Transitory.
And
We heard that for a year. Yeah. I mean,
transitory, it's coming, blah, blah, blah. Spent more money, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Dude, my friend just the other day, in 2020, he bought a new house. His monthly homeowner's insurance was $130. It is now up to $407.
Yeah,
He just sent it.
I got you beat. After Hurricane Idalia, my insurance went up $1,400 a month.
That's insane.
Well, okay. Let's just call it for normal people who don't put themselves in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah, that's true. Come live with tornado cars. They're much less likely to
just, just point it out there.
The Tampa Bay has been blessed by Indians, and we don't get hit by hurricanes, and that's actually true. Not that the blessing is what does it, but scientifically, they also believe that there's a lot of shallow water.
Yeah, I think
between my area and the south area of the Tampa Bay, and a hurricane can't survive on that. What hit us was the push from the flood surge from Idalia, even when she was 150 miles to our west, and we got a lot of flooding as a result.
But here's a perfect example of that, Yergz, that I think is an unfair disadvantage to Biden. But to be fair, it's how we've positioned presidential politics for decades now. Biden, no matter what, whether it's his fault or not, is going to take the blame for economic woes. And now some of it is his fault, and he should own it, in my opinion, because I think that you could at least use COVID as a crutch to say, we were trying to get out of a desperate situation, and maybe looking back, we realized that we shouldn't have done some things that were, I mean, like just fess up. But like, he knows that's true because
you're the president of the United States. It's not about fessing up. It's taking ownership. And
taking ownership. Exactly.
And look, I think it's probably one of the best examples I saw of leadership the past probably year, or actually probably the past 5 years, was Costco CEO the other day. There was a Costco that decided to unionize. Mm-hmm. And he came out and he went on the news, national TV or whatever, and said, that's a failure of us. We have always wanted to treat our employees well, pay them well, good benefits, with respect, time off, the whole nine. If there is one company or one of our Costco's that feel like they need to unionize, that's a failure on me and my leadership. That was the boldest statement ever. And I think that that's how people should be treating leadership. The president needs to come out and not say, oh, it's because of Trump policies or it's the stupid Republicans. Yep. But he should be saying, like, that falls on me. And what we're going to do is X, Y, and Z. And I understand, like, this is why it is. And you know what? That would change the respect of so many people, because taking ownership and leadership is something that is, one, respected, and two, in very little supply. So if you give them that, I promise you that perceptions will change, something that's not happening. I brought up that example of my friend's insurance is because whatever we're hearing is that this 3.7% inflation rate, it's not the case. And yeah, we can talk about eggs and bread and milk and honey and all that other stuff, but
which, by the way, I just bought for like $1.25. I don't know what the hell people are bitching about eggs for.
Well, it's because they rose really high at one point and they dropped back down to normal. But overall, groceries are enormously higher than they were, and then that's really where Biden really has the most problem, is that inflation, even though it has slowed, those things rose to a level that are way above where they were a few years ago. And here's the problem, is that candidates specifically, for decades now, have always blamed bad economic stuff on the president, even if the president had anything to do with it. They've also taken credit for good economic stuff that they had nothing to do with. So if you try to take credit for good and blame bad, and you've taught the American public to do this for decades now, That's what they're going to do. And so they go, well, I remember my money going further. I mean, there are people that are going to choose between Donald Trump and Joe Biden because maybe their small business isn't going to survive under Biden's EPA regulations.
That's the thing that really scares me for Biden is how many times do you see a news story come out? This restaurant chain closed.
Right.
This department store closed.
Yeah.
I'm seeing one a week.
And sometimes I think that's Biden's fault. I think that he like some of the EPA stuff and some of the like environmental regulations and those kind of things that are coming down from like regulatory stuff are his fault. The border, he has to own. Like, and you're right. I think if he just did and said, "I messed up. We're gonna undo what we did," I think he'd be alienating a tiny part of his base, but he'd be welcoming a lot of people in the middle, like independents who are leaving the parties in droves, to say, you know what, I like that he owned the mistake and fixed it. Because Biden, I mean, Trump's not wrong in that Biden could fix a lot of the border stuff that he broke after, by undoing executive orders that Trump had done, because the president does have some unique control over enforcement of the border because he's the head of the executive branch and Border Patrol is under him. But you can't change immigration law. Obviously, the president can't do that with a stroke of a pen, although they've certainly both tried. But I think you're absolutely right, Matt. If someone just stood up and owned it, I think most people would go, even if I disagree with you, I appreciate that you're actually standing for something, or you're fessing up to messing up, or you're whatever. Just like, I think you're right. People desire that. I think that you look at the authenticity factor that I think was a factor in 2016 of the reason Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump did so well.
I agree.
Donald Trump was saying things that I thought during debates would have immediately, I think they would have actually been things that if anyone else would have said, it wouldn't have worked. Something about the way Trump said it, people went, "Ooh, wow, you're criticizing George W. Bush for 9/11 or something like that," or whatever it may be. They were things that you couldn't say before in the Republican Party.
Or Hillary's donors taking the same tax cuts that he got.
Same thing. Yeah. So yeah, like things like that. But I think people went like, oh, you know what? He's being authentic. Now, I'm not saying he is not lying a lot of the time. That's not what I'm saying. But I think he is authentically himself. He's not listening to someone who's telling him, here's how you need to behave. Here's what you need to say. Here's what you need to. And I think that people are seeing right through that with politicians. You see it with the people that are imitating Trump. People go, no, you're imitating a guy. That's not who you really are. And those people are losing races. I think people are desperate for that. And if I had Biden's ear, I would tell him, you need to go after the far left of your party for some of the ridiculous things they're doing. You need to go after anti-Semitism on campus. You can say, hey, look, I believe in people's free speech, but I also, it's my free speech right to say, I think you're wrong if you're being anti-Semitic in your free speech. I'm not going to restrict it, but I think you're wrong and bigoted for doing it, and explain the situation better. I think we need an explainer in chief sometimes. I don't like that we've kind of turned the presidency into a mascot for the entire country, and we pretend that he has a lot of power that he doesn't. But it would be nice if we had, I don't want to get nostalgic for Ross Perot's charts, but I mean, it would be kind of nice, right? If one of these guys actually sat up and like said, let me explain something to you.
Here's the deal, see?
Because they would have the ear of the American public. Now, I'm not confident that either one of them can do that really well as part of the problem. I don't think Trump or Biden are especially great communicators. I think that Pete Buttigieg could do that. I think that Barack Obama absolutely could have done more of that. I think he actually has the talent to do it. I think Ted Cruz is someone that is like smart enough to do it. I think he's just chosen to go down this route of,
he doesn't want to lose his job.
But I know he's smart enough to be able to actually like pull up a whiteboard and explain things to people. But that's not what anyone's choosing to do because it doesn't get rewarded. But I think it would get rewarded. People aren't just willing to try it.
Yeah. So I want to get you pissed off because I still got this there sitting while you're waiting.
Yeah.
And we were kind of, it's really what we've been talking about all day is the point that VR, is that's the only way I know I'm going to get it right. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, I think it's Vivek. I think that's what we landed on.
Vivek or something, whatever. He's saying that they're not even playing checkers, and Biden is playing 3D chess.
Are you gonna play the clip?
Yeah.
Make you mad, or we just okay?
Let me see if I can find it here without making everything go bye. It's gonna be that one. Oh, did I just lose it now?
We should put a
Yeah.
blood pressure monitor on me, like, while I'm listening to Vivek Ramaswamy talk. I think it would be funny.
All right, let's hear him.
But then you sort of see this, the other side, you think about this, they're one step ahead of us, right? So we can complain about the trial, but they're playing chess while we're playing checkers. Anybody notice when that next debate was scheduled? For a whole year, you have President Biden refusing to commit to a debate. Then all of a sudden, a 180-degree shift. You don't see that happen on a dime unless there's something else going on. That debate is set for June 27th to be hosted by CNN at CNN's headquarters with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash as the moderators with no live audience. That would be the equivalent of setting up a debate in the middle of Mississippi with Donald Trump and a live audience hosted by Fox News. Would they agree to that? No, but we've agreed to that now to them. But the most important part to pay attention to is the date of it. It's June 27th. That makes this the earliest presidential debate ever in recorded televised history of this country. And the first one ever to happen before the Democratic National Committee.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
The DNC is in August. The presidential debate is in June. What does that tell you? This is the final audition before Joe Biden actually gets to be the nominee. Right? They've set themselves up for a win-win. The expectations are so low. You got a senile man who the people around him who are actually operating him as their puppet. I mean, this mistake we make, we rail against Joe Biden. It's a mistake to rail against Joe Biden because A, he is not really the president of the United States, not in any functional sense of the word. He's not operating as the president. He is a puppet for the manager.
Yeah, so that all right there was, it's getting my blood boiled. He's alluding to the whole stop the steal bullshit. Even Republicans have admitted Biden won.
Of course. Well, but he's trying. No, he's not. I mean, I think he's kind of hedging that, but he's also the Republicans are trying to claim that Biden's not in control of anything. I think that that's a fool.
He shouldn't be. That's why he's president. He makes the final decision, but he doesn't micromanage like Trump did for 4 years.
But I don't think
that's one of the things that got him kicked out.
But I don't think that's
so many people in his administration spoke against him. Was because he had to have his hands in everything.
Yeah, but they're saying he's a puppet.
Biden looks at Pete Buttigieg and says, "Go build me bridges."
Yeah,
and then he goes back to sleep.
Yeah, but I do think, but it's a little more nefarious than that. They're claiming that Biden's this puppet that doesn't know what's going on. I think that the Republicans keep setting the bar so low that it's very easy for Joe Biden to jump over it. I mean, just casually step over it. I think the reason it's so early is because Biden knows he's got to do something now. He can't wait any longer, and that's why it's early.
Look, I think he's doing this on purpose to spread conspiracy.
Exactly.
Also, we're not. Yeah. I mean, there's no checkers. Every side says the other side is playing chess while we're playing checkers. This is stupid.
I know.
I think you don't think so.
No. I'm saying I think that you're right. It's like they're giving too much credit to Biden's team. I think that they're like not doing a good job is really what this is about.
But he is right. Here's what I do believe. I do think that, and we talked about this three weeks ago. Is that they did play Trump. They didn't understand how he operates. It was shooting from the hip, sort of like yes to do this. He didn't really look at the details. They didn't really think about it. He didn't confirm with anybody's team. Biden just said, "Hey, let's do it. Let's do it like this." And Trump's like, and everybody's like, "Wait, what'd you just say?"
Yeah, but
100%.
Not good at politics.
That's exactly what happened. They'll figure this shit out. But that's what what happened with Trump. And I think the biggest thing that he did not mention is that this is coming after his Biden speech to the United Nations. The United Nations is meeting on June 6th in that week, and then 2 weeks later is this. So he's gonna be coming off a big speech to the United Nations. Prior we were talking about Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Taiwan, China, and making a huge platform of how he's going to push global politics and geopolitics forward, and taking that directly to the debate stage of saying, like, this is how we are going to maintain American supremacy, for lack of a better word, and NATO and so on and so forth. And that's going to put Trump on his heels. It's gonna. I think that was the biggest strategic win for him.
I think the silliest part about it, like implying that there are these like puppet masters that are controlling all of this, is like, if there were puppet masters controlling all this, why would they why would Biden be the nominee right now? He's clearly floundering. You know what I mean? Like they're this pretending that like they're gonna. I mean, he goes on later to say, of course, that the conspiracy theory is that at the convention they're gonna replace him with Michelle Obama. It puts no one in any kind of position
hope
to
so.
start a campaign in August, 2 months before the election. Like that's not a thing that people are gonna do. And like, oh, now we got to start a campaign. What this really
No.
is it is a hedge on Biden, if he doesn't perform well, having time to recover from it. If you do the debates in October, like we traditionally do, there's
I
no
agree.
time to recover from it because
Yes.
early voting is starting way too early, in my opinion. I don't like that we like let people vote 30 days ahead of the election. I think that a lot changes in 30 days, especially with these two old geezers.
I don't like the fact that we're allowing people to campaign 2 years before an election.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the campaign cycle starts immediately. So, I mean, I think that that's really what this is. Now, are there people crossing their fingers that Biden has such a senior moment that they can go, okay, we can force him out or something, or convince him to resign? Maybe, but I don't think those are the people that are actually in power pulling strings. Those are like, I think if you had to put truth serum in every congressional Democrat or every kind of like Democrat operative right now, they might say that they wish Joe Biden would either do something drastic to change the trajectory of this election or that he wouldn't be the nominee. Like,
Sure.
like we've talked about that before. No one has Joe Biden as their first choice in this election.
But okay, so yes and no. I agree. I agree. Nobody has Biden as their first choice.
Yeah.
Fine. But let's stop. I think it's a very big error to say that there isn't some kind of plan that they're working. Look, Biden is an experienced politician, and people around him are experienced politicians and operatives. And the people that are donating to Biden and he has connections with, the reason why that Biden is going to get their support and hold their support is the same reason why Dennis Kucinich still can run and raise money, running as a congressman, after running for governor, after losing for running for mayor, after being on Fox News, after losing his congressional seat. He's been a loser for the past, decade or more, 14 years, and he still can raise money because people remember because of three things. He has massive connections within the political arena. He is very, very good at what he does, and people are loyal as hell to him. Biden has all of those three, and so I think that downplaying Biden, and as much as I would pick 1,000 other people besides Biden running. Let's not disregard him as just being old and stupid. He's very politically savvy. He is very well connected, very well funded, and he is a fucking force. Him and everybody around him is a force to be reckoned with in the political arena. That's an absolute fact. So we really got to start giving him a little more respect than just like, oh, he's an old bumbling old man.
Well, but what I'm saying is that
he might not lose. He might not win a debate because he's not as sharp as he used to be. He might look a little frail. He might be frail. But to say that he doesn't understand politics and he doesn't have that power, that is absolutely false.
No, I think you're right. The only person that can get Biden out of this race is Joe Biden. That is the only person. It's Jill and Joe Biden. Those are the only two people. Jill could convince him you shouldn't run again. That's it. There's no one else that could, I don't think, convince him. I'm sure that no one's tried, unfortunately. I think that someone should have been because to me, there's three things he could do to really change the election. I think if he replaced his VP, that would make a difference. I think if he replaced Kamala Harris, I think it would actually make a difference because people are concerned about
or at least stop saying how much confidence you've got in her.
Well, I know. I think you just have to replace her. I don't think you can because it's set. People don't like her, including minority voters don't like her. He's more popular with black voters than she is. Okay. So just get rid of don't be worried about the far left, white liberal part of your base that's going to call you racist for doing so. Replace her with another black woman for all I care. But just, she's got to go because people are concerned about his age. They're like, I don't know if he can serve another term. I think that's a fair question from the American public to say, can he serve a full term? I'm really voting for that vice presidential nominee. Normally, vice president,
I think that's fair.
They don't matter at all. I think he could do that, and that would shake up the election. I think the other thing he could do to shake up the election is do the leadership thing we talked about earlier, own some of the stuff and pick some positions and kind of go after some of his base, because I think he has more to gain than to lose. And then I also think he could just like fire the young, super online staff of his that I don't think is loyal to him. I think there's a problem here. This is someone, oh, what's her name at Washington Post? Why did I just draw a blank on her name? Anyway, she brought up a really good point on a podcast. I think
Harry Stinson is the Twitter guy. He's not. I'm not kidding you. He's 19, maybe.
Yeah, and I think the problem.
He's all Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden, Joe Biden.
Right, but
doesn't say anything that what Joe Biden's done.
I know, but then the problem is like some of those people were the people that like anonymously like called him out, like wrote the letter, like the White House staffers that were against his Israel position. He should have fired all those people. He'd have been like, look, you're either with me, because I think the problem is, anyway, I think I can't remember her name at Washington Post, but she brought up a good point. Biden and Trump are both really old. Trump, fortunately, for his sake, has enough of a grip on everything that like people have to do what he says, essentially. Like that's what that's the Republican
that
platform.
was strategic, 100%.
Yeah, but
Biden, I agree with. Whether he's got a cognitive grip.
No, that's different. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what he says goes.
Okay.
With Biden, that's not the case, but he should bring a little bit of that umph, because I don't think that the young staffers are loyal to him. They don't have a political future with Joe Biden. They have a political future with someone else, because Joe Biden, even if he wins this next election, he is going to be either dead or out of politics permanently in 4 years.
Let me just expand on what you just said there. So I just looked it up. 8 presidents died in office, 4 from assassination, 4 from natural causes. That is, if you guys want to know, Abraham Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, Kennedy assassinated. Natural causes: Harrison, Taylor, Harding, Roosevelt. That equals 18% of the presidents have died in office.
That's not a small number.
That is not a small number. So I think that so we should actually, I could get the ages,
and none of them were as old. None of them were as old as Joe Biden is.
Exactly, and I think so. This is a very one. I think that we always have to look at. I don't like that the vice president is like this afterthought half the time, like to bring people together as this political hire, because that person has it seems to have an 18% chance to take over.
Yeah,
as the president.
And think about something for a minute. Go back for as long as you've been alive and name one vice president that you would have been okay with immediately becoming president.
Oh, I think that there was. I really think.
Cheney.
I'm
just kidding, bro.
Cheney.
But really, I mean,
I thought you said Danny.
I don't think that most of them were super far off. I mean, I think that Trump and Pence are probably the most. There's probably.
I mean, we have wait. We have Biden right now, so I mean, there's a vice president. Gore ran. You know, Gore had been fine.
That's why I voted for Bush. I just couldn't get behind Gore.
But I'm with you in the sense that they like the vice presidency does not normally matter in the campaign. It's not swinging elections. It really does not. The data shows that it's just like try to pick these different lanes that people are in. I don't think that people care about that. I think you'd be better off picking someone that, you know, I think that Bush Cheney was an actual working relationship, whereas like
Obama Biden was a working relationship, absolutely.
Sometimes, but but Obama also was like hated some of Joe Biden's politics.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think that he was a fool for that. I think that this goes back to my argument last week that I think that he had some egotistical tendencies as the president, that he didn't understand that Joe Biden was the one getting his stuff done, because he was the one going to the Senate and talking to Mitch McConnell and getting stuff done, and because Obama wasn't the person doing that. And so I think that Biden took him. I think Obama took Biden for granted sometimes, but I also think that he was understandably frustrated by him. But I think that I go back to the Lincoln thing. It's like I'm going to have a cabinet full of people that disagree with me or will fight with me on stuff, because I think you are a better leader when you do that, when you're not the smartest person in the room, when you purposely surround yourself with people. And I think the vice president's the first person you do that with. And I think it would be better if more people pick.
Of course.
It was like Trump's pick of Mike Pence makes more sense to me. Now, I mean, I know it was just a political play, but it actually makes sense to have someone.
At that point, though, he was also a no-name.
Well, he wasn't a
no-name. He was governor of Indiana, sure, but he wasn't a popular nationwide governor.
Well, but that's pretty normal.
Forget about popularity.
I disagree with that.
He wasn't even well known.
I think
he wasn't Gavin Newsom. He wasn't Bill Richardson, or God forbid, even Ron DeSantis.
He's one of the 16 people that were on stage for the Republican as far as like debate. So I mean, I think you're
That doesn't mean anybody knew who he was.
Well, but you're in the top 16 people that could possibly. It's going to be one of those people on stage, probably.
In addition to Trump, can you name the other 14?
Yeah, I can, but I'm a political junkie. I think most people
Hey,
can't.
let's see if we can. Okay,
Exactly.
so wait. Let's go. Let's
Now,
do
we
this.
don't have time. We're actually.
We don't have time.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we're at-
Damn.
I got a
all
1
right,
o'clock that's
gotta
coming
go.
up next.
What is?
In fact, it is 1 o'clock. So, again, love the discussion. I hope.
Oh, really
Michaela
quick, Yergz,
listens
before
to
we
it.
get off, the average age of the presidents who died in office were 57.7 years old.
Oh my gosh! And those are the people that we're calling young right now. By the way, of course, I realize life expectancy has changed, but
Well, half of those 8 were assassinated. So
Sorry, didn't we know about Yergz? Close it out. I have other places to be too.
that's all right, guys. We'll see you in a week and a day, live anyway. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks. Well done again. And we'll see you all really soon. Have a great weekend.
y'all too.
See you, everybody. All right, let's go to that then. Hey there.
Hello, how are you?
Give me 1 second. I just came off the air with my show, and we're actually still broadcasting right now. So give me a second, and I'll close all that off.